You're listening to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. In this episode, we're featuring the session Evaluating Circana Data, a follow-up to the Children's Book Market Overview feature talk that was presented at Children's Institute 2024 in New Orleans.
Hello, everybody. Are you ready to rock and roll? Hi. All right. We're going to start with housekeeping. You've heard this already. I'm going to say it fast. 1, thank you, Ingram. 2, please silence your cell phones. 3, use the app or the website to evaluate sessions. You can also find all of Brenna's lovely slideshows on your app, so if you want to reference those later, you can do that. This is going to be interactive. We will be asking you things. Please speak them into the microphone. Don't yell, or I will find you. Follow the antitrust guidelines. Don't do price things. And that's us. Antitrust. See, don't do that. Hi, I'm Nicole Brinkley. I am the manager of Oblong Books in Rhinebeck, New York. And we're going to talk about how you can use all that juicy, delicious Circana data that you just got. I am joined up here. Why don't we just go left to right? Who are you, all of you?
My left, okay. I'm Lauren Savage. I own the Reading Bug in San Carlos, California. We've been around for 15 years.
And let me turn this on. I'm Holly Weinkoff, owner of Red Balloon Bookshop in St. Paul, Minnesota, and we're celebrating 40 years this year.
I'm Brenna Connor. I am the industry analyst for U.S. Books at Circana.
Woo. Okay, we're going to kick things off. I know you just saw her talk, but we're going to have Brenna do a really quick recap of the most important things you just heard in case it didn't sink into the spongy meat of your brain. Brenna?
Yes, thank you. And I'm going to try to glance because I don't have.
Can you see?
I should have pulled it up.
Do you want to come over here?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I can. Yeah. And is this on? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So softening sales with the steepest decline for the young reader and the middle grade reader segments. And then a call out that middle grade readers are the only ones that are showing a decline versus pre-pandemic. Holiday books are a bright spot that are outperforming, and that long-term sales trend shows the growing momentum for kids' holiday books. Some licensed character properties are growing. I wrote some because as a whole, licensed books are on the decline, but there are a number of bright spots that are showing across all age segments. Pockets of growth in picture books include interactive books as well as mermaid books. Graphic novels. So I actually took 2 slides out of the deck in the interest of time, and those were both graphic novels. But what you would have seen is that overall graphic novel sales at the top line are down, but that is largely led by adult. In the kids market, sales are down, but they're down less than total. So kids graphic novels are down 2%, and they are gaining market share within the entire graphic novel space. Young reader graphic novels, ages 4 to 8, was a bright spot of growth. This is a smaller segment in terms of volume compared to what we're looking at for YA and middle grade reader, but it is a bright spot, and I think it's an opportunity to grow sales. Series that are selling well within graphic novels include, besides Dogman, include Sweet Valley Twins and the Babysitters Club. And then also in terms of age segments, it's the infant category that is seeing growth and has been for a number of years. Then we talked about the conflicting macroeconomic factors. So there's some good things and then there's some bad things, but overall some of the pressure on wallets may be easing, but prices still remain high. And there are additional headwinds that are facing families with young children compared to overall consumers.
So how this session is going to go. Do you want to give expectations for the year ahead real quick?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So expectations, I think that sales will soften for this year compared to prior year, but which means it'll be in line with 2019 volume. But I think beyond 2024, we're going to see a stabilization within the kids market.
All right, so here's how this panel is going to go. one of us up here is going to ask all of you a question, and then you are going to have to talk to each other. I know it's tragic. So we're going to ask a question, we're going to give you our brief thoughts on it, and then you're going to look at all of the beautiful faces at the table with you. You're going to talk about it for like 5 to 6 minutes, and then Jen, can you wave your hand? Is going to bring you a mic afterwards, and we're going to ask like 3 of you each to chit-chat about it once we let this person in the room. That all makes sense to everybody? You all consent to this. Great. Holly, do you want to ask the first question?
Sure, yeah. So it's up there on the screen. What was the most surprising data point in the session, and also what validated your bookstore experience? So a couple things that struck me is how, in general, retail is down. Books, in comparison, while we're down a bit, not as significantly as other retail, and I think I'm taking that as a very good sign. The other thing, too, that we heard at the end was how we are we're gaining in terms of our market share on books, on BookScan, and that is great news. Can you hear me okay in the back? Is that okay? All right. And so I also want to take this opportunity again to encourage you all, if you are not reporting to BookScan, please do that. So those were 2 things that were surprising to me, and something that is validating what we're seeing in our store is what was just mentioned, the growing market of the young graphic novel. We're seeing that for sure and have created a new section, so I'm feeling like that was a good move for us to go ahead and do that.
If you didn't grab Cloud Puppy from the galley room, great pick for that section. All right, I'm going to give you all 7 minutes to talk amongst yourselves, and then be prepared for some of you to speak. Talk, discuss, be brave. All right, gang. I'm going to gain your attention again, though I know you're having the best discussions. Can 3 of you raise your hand to volunteer what your table discussed? And Jen will walk and or sprint over to you to hand you the microphone. Probably walk.
I'll sashay.
Who will volunteer? Who will be brave?
Rebecca's
Thank
brave.
you.
Okay, the very first thing we said is I also created a beginner graphic novel section. That was like the first thing I did a couple years ago after hearing this, and it does really, really well. The other thing that we all said was we didn't know we could access this information for free.
Yeah.
And we don't know how to do it, and so something on that would be very helpful.
Heard.
Brenna, what are you doing next week? Kidding. Thank you for sharing that.
Can you ask that question into a microphone, or I'll come get you?
Yeah, I mean, to just elaborate on it further, I mean, we've been reporting for years, and why is it we didn't know that we could get this, in return, that we could have gotten free access to the information?
Yeah, so I encourage you to reach out to bestsellers@bookweb.org, and the ABA will help you understand how to get your access set up, or share your login that may have been set up years ago but hasn't been accessed in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, we can get the bestseller access, but there's a lot more information than that, right?
So ABA reporting retailers get access to the title and bestseller service.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that to access your Circana data, you need to connect with the folks that do the bestseller list at ABA. So
So you do need to be reporting to
Yeah.
access the data. And apparently, I just learned years ago when I tried looking at the data, I was very overwhelmed. Apparently, there's a new tool that is easier to look at, but it's also sounds like it might be a little limited as to what we're able to see.
Right. So the access that is available to ABA reporting retailers is the title and bestseller service. So it doesn't include all of the data that I pulled today. That's not something that you would be able to pull for yourself.
Yeah.
What about mobile data?
Yep. You can look at bestseller lists based on your geographic area.
How about one more person to share what they talked about at their table? I'll pick somebody.
She will.
Thank you, Tegan. Tegan, I do this to you every time. I'm so sorry.
Hi, Tegan from Queen Anne Book Company in Seattle. Our table, one of the things that surprised us is that YA is holding strong because we're not experiencing that in most of our stores. And we're wondering about who is buying that and how. We felt validated, sadly, by the middle grade data. And Lily pointed out that she pulled out her series from middle grade, and then the rest of the middle grade section just tanked. And it also, the graphic novels information was validating something that Jessica wants to do in her store about age groups and graphic novels. And I think that summarizes our table.
Amazing. All right, we're going to flick over to our next question. So, if something isn't working, change it. So now that you have data and information and ideas, what is something concrete that you can change in your store to grow sales now, even if it feels risky, right? So yes, we're absolutely talking about sectioning out those younger graphic novels. Something that I'm going to continue looking at doing is maybe cutting down and condensing how I stock middle grade, shifting some of my focus to, okay, if we know standalones aren't working, let's focus on series and make sure those get prominent face outs and displays. And also like not relying on like the displays that I normally make and trying more holiday displays or niche displays and creating moments. Take a minute and talk with your table about action items that you can do right now. We love action items. And go! All right, gang, I'm going to talk slowly so you can finish your thoughts and then turn your attention back to me. Thank you very much. All right, can I get a volunteer to share what you talked about at your table? What ideas you're going to implement? Excellent, yes. We love a man not afraid of a microphone.
I didn't say I wasn't afraid of the microphone. What we focused on was the educational. I mean, the benefits of reading thing was we thought was so important, and it would be nice to like have materials, like have a campaign that we could. This is something that ABA could maybe help us, develop some infographic materials and some campaign ideas around. Some themes that, just like we've done in the past around shopping locally, and it goes along with that. I think it's a perfect match with, supporting shopping locally, but also kind of what it does educationally, all those benefits.
Absolutely, heard.
Were you in the room 2 weeks ago, Tom? Were you in the room 2 weeks ago?
Excellent.
We were talking about sort of our previous reluctance to embrace licensed properties, and because it is everywhere, and you can find it at the grocery store or whatnot. But maybe creating a Bluey shelf or we do have
one.
We have a Taylor Swift section that does quite well, which is both wonderful and a little painful.
Yeah.
Taylor's great, but it's a lot.
Yeah. Jen, when is the licensed characters panel tomorrow?
It's tomorrow morning at 9. There is a licensed characters as a gateway for love of literacy tomorrow morning. And anecdotally, I will share that my niece has speech apraxia, and so licensed characters are the only way she can communicate with her peers. And so it stinks that she can't find the stuff in her local bookstore, and so she don't keep her out of your stores. Carry the Bluey.
Can we get one more person to share what their table talked about? Yes.
While you're working over there, just a quick tip on the Bluey thing. We all get it. None of us want to put the licensed things, but the strategic thing that we did was put Bluey all the way to the back of the store to get the customers all the way through.
I wasn't going to share something that we talked about because there are just two of us that are booksellers here.
Yeah.
But I wanted to share, somebody mentioned educational materials, and maybe the ABA could develop some. ALA has a ton of stuff on their website, and I'm a former educator, so we used to download all of their why parents should read to their children. It would be very easy for ABA to get those materials and adapt them for booksellers. So whoever's listening out there.
Thank you. All right, we're going to, I was going to say hurry on over, but we're not. We're going to move on over to the next question.
All right. Ooh, let me turn the button on. All right, so kind of related to the last question, but a slightly different focus. How can you take what you have learned from this information to make a difference in your store or in your role? So, for example, maybe you do the merchandising at your store, or maybe you're the person who does the buying, or maybe you do all of the things. But yeah, so thinking about one thing you can do. For us, a couple things. I mean, and it's like I knew this, but just the importance of the educational books. We have them, but we don't promote them. So I'm feeling like that would be a good thing for us to do. The other thing, too, is I really want to dig into our picture book sales after this, after hearing how large of a percentage across the board are backlist titles. So that's something I want to do when I get back.
Yeah. So in your roles specifically, so manager, frontline bookseller, buyer, whatever you are at your store, how can you specifically, not just your store overall, but you take something and from this panel and use it to adjust how you do your work? And go. All right, gang, I am once again talking quietly into a microphone so that I can slowly get your attention without disrupting the flow of your final thoughts. Thank you, whoever laughed. All right, who wants to share how they are going to use this data to specifically influence their role at the bookstore? Be brave. You all were talking so robustly a moment ago.
This is a good table.
Come on, tell us your role and your idea.
I'll speak to the table. Hi, Jessica from Books Inc. in California. And we were talking a lot about the way that the grandparent figure was sort of central to a lot of the different data points that the presentation brought out. So how can we kind of target them and provide additional services, maybe even additional services that we can charge for, in order to get the grandparents on board with the healthy, happy kid is a reader, and educating them about, uplifting newer titles, and developing some of that, I think, kind of community commitment, which was one of the final points that Brina made. Was that a good summation?
Amazing.
And I'll just add to that. I mean, one of the things that I was thinking about was how, we heard about the decline in the birth rate, but how grandparents are increasing. So yes, we need to capture those grandparents.
Well, we should specify, grandparents are increasing their spend, grandparents are not multiplying. Does one more person want to share what their table was talking about? Yeah. Yeah, grandparents aren't getting cloned.
There's some quiet tables in the middle of the room.
Somebody can be brave.
Tom.
Thank you for being brave, Tom.
Tom Lowenberg from Octavia Books again. So something that's very interesting to me in particular is how we promote what we do uniquely as independent booksellers. And And so I have my postulate is that all this stuff that we saw, we're leaders on this. So it's, we were talking about the license stuff and so forth, but that's not really our strong point. But what I would like to see is, all that tailwind stuff that we have is good, but we think that we have even a stronger tailwind than everybody else because we're not selling a commodity. We're dealing all the effects, for instance, on education and so forth. I would like to say that we amplify that effect with what we do. So I think that we can think about this as, how is it that shopping at an independent bookstore, you get even the extra bonus beyond all that.
Tom, I have great news for you about our next question.
Okay.
Lauren, would you like to ask it?
I would. Okay, so based on the data you've seen, how can you capitalize on the uniqueness of your indie bookstore and remind your community of your value as an independent bookstore? I took a small part of this as an example. I want to focus on the joy economy and the nostalgia. About 10 years ago, and this is kind of history repeating itself and kind of validating doing this again. Do you remember those pop classics? There was like 1980s, there was a Back to the Future, there was like probably, Gremlins, I'm trying to remember all the, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, all of those pop, I put out a display of those and just, the people coming in, even if they weren't, you didn't think they were gonna buy anything, that stuck out to them and they came over. I mean, people would just like buy the whole collection. I think what that does, like you're talking about the joy economy, it reminds them of what makes them happy. It gives them comfort. And the thing on top of that is not only did they buy that book, they're buying it in your store, and that's become a whole experience. And they'll relate that experience back to your store and their community.
All right, you may now discuss amongst yourselves how you can capitalize on the uniqueness of an indie. And when I ask you to talk next, I hope it's from a table we haven't heard from yet. All right, you wonderfully, uniquely indie booksellers. Who would like to share how y'all plan on capitalizing the uniqueness of your bookstore? Jen will bring you a microphone. Thank you, Raina. A table that hasn't talked before. I love it.
Hi, I am Raina Nielsen from Blue Cypress Books here in New Orleans, and I'm the event specialist there. So one thing that we are able to do, being an indie that you can't do at a bigger corporation usually, is flexibility. Like, I was saying that I could fit everybody who works at our bookstore at one of these tables, and within half an hour we could decide what we're going to do, how many cupcakes we're going to buy, what our budget is, what the date is, everything, and then just go from here. And if you work somewhere bigger, that is not how that's going to work. It's going to go up a chain, down a chain, up, up, down, up, down. It's going to be next year before you get that event going, and that's pretty special. And I don't think that's necessarily unique to bookstores, but it's definitely unique to being independent and being smaller. So, and that translates to adult books too, but for kids, sometimes you got to think outside the box, and that allows us to do that all the time.
I love that answer. Flexibility is one of our biggest assets. Who else wants to talk about how their uniquely indie perspective and how they can remind their community of that? Excellent, yes. You are so brave, booksellers. I'm proud of you.
So we talked about how, about kind of leveraging the position as the B2B source and the one that does book fairs to use the data that you get from like in-school book fairs to influence what your buying looks like in your store. We talked about how if everyone is doing all the backlist picture books and all the backlist stuff, what we can do is show them, we provide them with how to find the front list. And we buck that trend by, when they come into us, we give them our knowledge and we give them our recommendations so that they aren't only buying backlist, they are buying front list, which then also makes us more valuable to publishers because front list continues to be important. Yeah. And we can do that through shelf talkers was one way we're talking about. We talked about having bookmarks that, like, we just started, this is adult, but we have a whole bunch of bookmarks that say, like, give me more Bridgerton, but then we write on it, like, but make it lesbians, or, but make it trans, or, but have them be thieves, and stick those so that people, again, they find our expertise and use that to change what some of those data points are that we saw.
Amazing answer. All right, we have one more question for you, and then you'll be able to ask us any questions or share any final thoughts.
I have, this started at 3.
You gave us till 4:40. Remember?
So much time.
They did it. Yeah. All right, Lauren, you're up again.
Thanks. This question actually relates directly to your answer, which is fantastic. And it's, how do you think you can increase sales of those unique items in your own stores? What can you do to accomplish those sales? I'll go back to my previous question. I'm talking about the joy economy and nostalgia. And I mean, it's a pretty basic, easy answer for me. It's a really great display, smack in the front of the store. I want to bring people in that have not been in before with something that reminds them of their past and the comfort that they felt with those books. I would also probably take it a little bit further and put some risk into it and really blow it out. Not just taking in like one copy of each of those pop classics or whatever I use, but also maybe sidelines and just a really great, remember there was a cup that was like a mug that was in the shape of the Gremlins from the 1980s, and I put a big display of those up, and it just worked really well to bring people in, just give them something to talk about.
And go. All right, gang, it's time to answer the last question we've posed to you. So who would like to share what their table has talked about? I'm going to stare so hard at Therese at the table in the back because they haven't talked yet, and she's my coworker, and I can make her talk. Bring it to Therese. You can do it. She's at the table in the back. Hi, Therese. Therese, what has your table talked about? Don't know me. I will lovingly bully you.
Well, the only thing I'm going to say is we are a little disappointed that we don't have any fascinating things to say, but the only answer I have, because I have a small toy store, bookstore, is that we have a lot of stuffed animals, and when you say unique items, I'm always doing displays in windows with clothes on the animals. And for holidays, right now we have a giant bear in the window and an inner tube in it. So for every holiday, every season, change of anything, I'm changing things up. And even if it's a quiet week, we know that we're offering books next to, the cutest little giraffe in a sweater and sunglasses, So that's the only thing I can think of.
It's not gonna buy.
People are really...
Do you whisper it to me?
Do you want to say?
Yay!
We are actually a book and gift store, so majority books, but in a capitalist democracy, we like to put our money the places that we want to continue to grow. So the example I gave is, we have about 200 small vendors, so this is Palette Polish. They're also Portland-based, woman-owned 10 free nail polish, so we're supporting another local business, and they're also just really awesome. It's one of a whole bunch of things that we do, so we do add a bunch of things with the books so people can come in and you get books as gifts and also kind of create like a little, gift package.
Advertising when you have local artists, artisans, books, etc. in store will increase your sales because people who are coming in from out of the area and people in your area want to support that. So you hit both markets. We are going to open Q&A now. We're going to skip debrief. We're going to open Q&A now. You can ask any of us. You can bring up thoughts you've had, and Brenna will answer any questions as much as she is actually allowed to by her company.
Okay, so this is kind of a question for Brenna. I want to make sure we're using the same definition for backlist. What makes it backlist for you?
Yes, so can you hear me? A frontlist book is a book that's published within the last 12 months. Once it has hit 12 months in one day, it becomes a backlist book. What do you use? 6 months, okay.
I would also use it here. Yeah.
Okay, one other question for Brenna, and it's not necessarily a children's question, but in past when you've presented, you have actually just thrown out there what genre or segment of adult may or may not be gaining. Is there anything currently in adult that is doing well or doing poorly that
Yes,
we
that's
might want to know about?
That's a great question. So in the adult market, adult fiction is super strong. It's the strongest segment of the market. It's posted gains for the last 4 years. Right now, the category that's driving the largest declines is fantasy, or the largest growth is fantasy, and particularly the romantasy genre. But beyond that, we're also seeing gains in science fiction. We're seeing gains in coming of age. We're seeing gains in fairy tales. So kind of what I'm rolling this up into is themes of escapism that are doing well.
Both adults and kids right now really want escapist fiction. So I really recommend centering those in your stores and making displays around that.
And if you're interested in seeing a little bit of Brenna's data on that, there is a slide. If you go into your app and you find the session on middle grade from yesterday, you can access the slide deck. There's a slide with a bar graph of some of those genres.
Yep, it shows the top growth subjects in adult fiction in the last 12 months.
My question sort of connects to that. I am one of the people at our table who was surprised by the information that YA is a category experiencing growth.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if that is growth that, like that fantasy adult segment, is being driven by just a few titles or authors, or if it's more broadly distributed across the category.
That's a good question. So it's both. There's one dominant book, which is A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins, which posted significant gains, over 1 million units, because of the page-to-screen adaptation that was released in 2023. But then beyond that one title, there are a number of subjects that are gaining in young adult tied to what is popping on Book Talk. So this includes fantasy. This also includes romance and romantasy as well. So it's both.
If you'd like to learn more about YA romance, come to my panel tomorrow.
I have a question, and I'm sorry if this has already been answered by something I missed. But do you break out fiction or books in translation?
We can. I didn't for the session today, but sorry, books in translation. I'm thinking books in different languages. So
yeah, books in from different languages into
translated
English.
into English,
Yes.
correct. So I don't have a metadata tag that tells me if a book is in translation, so I'm not able to do that. I do have a metadata tag for books written in other languages, but not books in translation. Although there is a BISAC for it, so that could be one way of looking at it, but that would depend on how consistent publishers are with using that BISAC versus assigning a book in translation to the subject that it fits.
Could you repeat that into the microphone, please?
How many BISACs do you track per book?
Primarily, I'm looking at the first BISAC or the primary BISAC, but there are instances where I will look at secondary and tertiary BISACs, particularly when it comes to LGBTQ romance, because that is an area where we actually see more titles categorized within the secondary BISAC than we do for the primary. So when I want to get a full picture of what's happening in that area, I'll look at multiple levels of BISACs.
Quick question for the room. Everybody here knows what a BISAC is? I'm seeing nods. Raise your hand if you don't know. Great. Brenna, can you explain what a BISAC is?
Yes, a BISAC is an acronym for Book Industry Standard, and I forgot the
Category?
Category, yes. So a BISAC is a subject that a publisher assigns to a book that is used by book retailers and also librarians to help inform them where the book should be shelved. Adult nonfiction, cooking, and then it gets deep. We have over 6,000 BISACs in the book industry, so it makes it really fun to slice by category and see the trends that way.
If you want to look at them, I don't know if they're on Edelweiss, but they are on Indie Commerce and in Ingram. You can just scroll to the bottom of the book's listing. Great, thank you. I never look at them on Edelweiss.
Yep, and you can go to the book industry study group as well, who maintains the BISACs, and they have a full list of them on their website.
They're really fun to look at.
They are.
You can also pop over to Edelweiss's table, and Deidre or someone there will show you how to filter Edelweiss through BISAC if you want to get into the minutia of it all.
And to get even slightly more detail-oriented, they update the BISAC system every 2 years, and they accept comments and feedback from the public. So if you think that a category is too broad or too narrow, you can go on the Book Industry Study Group website and submit feedback. They change the codes based on that feedback.
They do, and then they have a webinar each year that outlines the changes to the BISACs.
We have time for one more question, comment, concern, or compliment.
You're awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Additional educational resources can always be found on the ABA website at www.bookweb.org. Happy reading!